Hi everyone, it's Nicki here. Welcome back to my channel. For those new here, I'm an author and editor and I post videos here on YouTube about writing, editing, reading and all the things I love. Today we're here to do a booktube tag. This should be quite a fun one. I'm hoping it's not going to get too lengthy. I'm going to try and power through because it is 25 bookish facts about me. So some of them you may have heard me mention things before about them, but a few of them hopefully will be new. And I'm going to try not to dwell too much because I don't want this to turn into a huge long half-hour video. I'll try to just steam through unless I feel I need to add a sort of clarification or explanation anywhere. So without any further ado, let's go straight in there. Number one, for several years in my early teens, I only read the classics. It's true, I did nothing but read classics for about 3 years. 2, my love for classics began after seeing the musical Les Miserables and wanting to read the book. That was the first one I read. It set me off on a classic buying spree. 3, I find it hard to resist a vampire story ever since I read The Vampire Diaries when I was about 11 or so, I think. Which leads us into number 4. The Vampire Diaries is the only book I've reread from that period of my life. And I was really disappointed because I loved it in my teens, 11, 12. It was just the perfect book. The perfect series. I adored them, and I came back and read them as an adult and I was so disappointed because I thought the writing was pretty average and it just really ruined it for me, that memory of them as a teenager, so it's kind of put me off rereading anything else from that period. Number 5, I like to read original language when possible. That's true because I do study languages. If I'm able to read something in the original, then I do like to. Essentially that's French and German for me. I would attempt Italian and Danish as well, but it would depend on the book. It would have to be modern language, like sort of older style Italian's a bit harder for me. I can manage a bit of Dante, but I find Decameron a little bit tougher going, for instance. So, but if possible, I have a collection, actually they're just here above my head. This is my foreign language classics shelf. I do have a few other foreign language dotted around the place, but mostly they're here, mostly French, with a few German and a bit of Italian thrown in. Number 6, I never go to the library even though I'm a member. That's true, I have a library card. My library is about a 10-minute walk from my house. I only went in and renewed my library card a while ago because I'd lost the old one. And I had this wonderful plan that I was going to start going in there more. But the trouble is, I always seem to have a TBR pile going. Between NetGalley review copies, other review copies I get from publishers and authors, plus books I receive as Christmas presents or buy for myself during the year, I've always got a huge pile of books waiting for me, and as such I can't quite bring myself to go and request library books too, because I only have a couple of weeks to read them and I'd feel really under pressure when I've already got others waiting that I have to read in certain times. So although I went and renewed the card, I've never been back since. I'd love to support the library, but I just feel like I've already got so many books to read that it's just ridiculous to go and get more. 7, the most expensive book purchase I ever made was a 10-volume hardback set of the complete works of Robespierre. It's actually, you won't be able to see this in the video, it's actually down below me, at my feet, and they're absolutely wonderful. So all Robespierre's accident writing, his political speeches, letters, some poems he wrote in his youth, they're all in there. It was a wonderful collection, but it did cost me just over £400. So in Aussie dollars that's $750 to $800 odd dollars. So it was a hugely expensive purchase, but I really love them and you can't really get them now. I looked around the other day just to see how much they were going for these days and they don't seem to exist anymore. So I bought them at the right time obviously, and I'm really glad I did. Number 8, 6 shelves of history non-fiction are what I currently have behind me. Most of it is sort of lower down around where I'm standing and just off to the right here. So you won't quite see it all in the video, but of those shelves, one whole shelf is devoted just to books on or by Robespierre. He has an entire shelf just of his very own. 9, I own 2 copies of Volume 1 of Proust, and the trouble is, it's such a major work obviously, and I keep saying I'm going to get to it and I'm going to read it all the way through, and I read book 1 ages ago. And then I didn't remember that I had a copy. So I went back and thought, I'm going to do this, I'm going to read all these volumes. And ended up buying volume 1 again, which I read, but then since then I've still never got around to buying the remaining, 5 or so volumes. So it's been a bit of a non-happening thing at the moment, but I am determined to do it. So next time I have some free money to spend on books, I think I will try to get at least a few, if not all of those remaining volumes, and I will read it. So number 10, I used to buy 6 classics for £5, and I did that in that period of my mid-teens when I was reading classics, and I did it for so long that when I had to go and buy a book at a standard price again, I nearly had a heart attack. I got so used to getting a book for less than £1, and then they were all like £7, £8, and I was like, what the hell? So that was a bit of a shock to the system after all those years, until I got back into the habit of buying other books again. Number 11. I very rarely dog ear my books. The only exception is Les Miserables, which is actually just behind me. I think it's just over here. And that one is dog-eared, and I have got my favourite pages turned down because it's quite a hefty work and I don't always have time to reread all of it, but sometimes I just like to dip into my favourite scenes when I've got a few minutes and I'm in the mood. So that is the only one I have ever dog-eared, otherwise I don't like doing it. Number 12. I hoard bookmarks, but I don't really use them. I do use bookmarks as I'm reading, but I tend to use the same 2 or 3, and they're usually book depository free ones where I've got about 10 copies of the same bookmark. I have a little pot with my collection of bookmarks in, but I'm just obsessed with keeping them neat and perfect looking, so I don't use most of them except these few freebies. Number 13. I have a book that I want that I've been searching for years and still haven't found a copy of, and that is The Woman Who Died of Robespierre by Hilary Mantel. It's a very old work by her, and it just seems to be impossible to find. Every now and again I check on the second-hand bookstores online, but so far I have not been successful, so that's like a permanent wish list number for me. Number 14. I am seduced by covers, though not entirely. I will be drawn into a book by a cover. If I'm in a shop and browsing and I see a cover, it will draw me forward. So it is the first thing that has to grab my attention if I'm going to buy a book that's not a classic or a sort of standard book on my wish list. And after that, though, it's not my only thing. I won't buy a book just on the cover. I will then read the blurb, and only if the blurb also hooks me will I consider buying the book. 15. The only books I ever pre-order are the Saint-Germain series by Chelsea Quinn Yarbrough. There are others that I keep watch on, so Deborah Harkness has a new one coming out. Actually I'm filming this a little early, so it will be out by the time this video goes live, but and I keep an eye on that and I wait for the release and buy it, but the only ones I ever pre-order are Chelsea Quinn Yarbrough's Saint-Germain historical vampire series. Number 16. I bought a beautiful hardback edition of the Kalevala in Finnish, even though I can't read it. I have a teach yourself Finnish book actually on one of the shelves down here, but it's just the time to get to these things, and I'd never be able to teach myself enough, I don't think, to read that well anyway. And but it just has beautifully illustrated, lovely looking version of the Kalevala, so I got it even though I can't read it. Number 17. My mother bought 2 volumes of the 12 of the History of the Middle Earth in different covers and editions, and it still bugs me. I was collecting the whole 12 volumes History of Middle Earth series, and I had them all in the really beautiful black, you probably won't quite see them in the video because they're actually just off to the side of me here, the beautiful black covers. Loved them, and then my mother bought me some for Christmas, filling in the gaps, and she bought different editions, and every time I look at them it really bugs me still because they don't match. 18. Having said that, price trumps beauty for me in terms of book buying. I see some beautiful editions of the classics in particular, lovely hardback, gorgeous editions, but if they're $35, $40, I would pay $10 to $15 for a standard paperback because I just don't have the money to spend on books simply because they look nice. I would always go for the cheapest good edition rather than the most beautiful. Number 19. When I moved to Australia, the bulk of stuff I had shipped from England was books. It's true, because I was living with my parents I didn't have huge amounts of furniture, just a couple of, I had a bureau and a ball chest, that was about it. but I brought over 1,000 books with me, so that was the biggest part of the shipment that I got sent here. Number 20, I read about 50-50 between ebooks and print. That's been going on for a few years now. Obviously all the ARCs I tend to get in print, ebooks, sorry, only 1 or 2 come in print, but I get a lot of books for my birthday and Christmas in print, so it tends to balance out. Maybe 50-50 is not quite accurate, maybe I should be saying 60-40 for ebooks, but I don't have a preference. I like reading both ways. Number 21, in connection with that, I'd say that ARCs, advanced reader copies, make up about 60% of my reading these days, which is good because I simply don't have a lot of disposable income. I'm not making a huge amount of money. Everything I make is pretty much going on bills, so it's wonderful to be able to receive these review copies because that keeps me reading. It keeps me in new books through the year. Number 22, I don't annotate books, with a couple of exceptions. Ones I had in school where they made you annotate it, which I really hated. I've got a couple of them, some Shakespeare and things still around, but I always put the bare minimum because I didn't like writing in them. The only real exception is foreign language books, where I'm reading a foreign language book and I need to look up words, then I will write them in the margin, the English version, because I find it easier to remember the words in future that way if I'm physically writing them down than just looking them up and moving on. So if you see one of my foreign language books, that may have a few scribblings in the margin. Number 23. When hubby and I moved house, I insisted on having a library and we had custom built shelves made. So here they are behind me, you can see them, they're gorgeous, aren't they? So we had someone come around, measure up to make the shelves fit exactly in this space. So of course we can never move now. My husband sometimes goes, oh, if we ever move in the future, it's like, no, we can't move because the library's here now. So number 24. When overseas, I like to shop for foreign books, and in fact the last trip I made back to the UK, about 2/3 of the books I ended up buying and bringing back with me were foreign language, Danish, Czech, German, French and Italian. I did have a few English ones, but while I'm over in London there's a much better shopping for foreign language books, and obviously if I'm in Europe naturally then I can find here. And finally, number 25, I love the smell of old books that you get from that musty leather scent in second-hand bookstores and libraries with old volumes. That's wonderful, it's one of my favourite smells. So those were a few bookish facts about me. I hope you found them fun and enjoyable. If you want to do the tag, all the information is below and I'd love to hear some facts about you. Do leave me a comment if there's anything you want to say about any of the facts I mentioned, or if you want to share that you've got something similar that you would put as one of your facts, do let me know. I will end there for now, but I look forward to seeing you all again very soon for another video. Bye for now, everyone.